Okay, welcome to this week's lesson. We're going to be flying over a lake today, and if you happen to go into the lake, you can have a whole deal of fun trying to make your aircraft an underwater vehicle. So once the drone is sunk, let's go over some things here. All right, so in our simulation, remember, we can go into physics, and you can start at the beginner, move your way up to realistic. The aircraft we're going to use this week is the Slinger. Okay, so by now you should know how to find the Slinger. You're going to want your viewport in your gadgets, viewport. You're also going to choose camera type nose. So make sure you have the nose camera. In this case, now we're looking, I believe, underwater. For our other gadgets, make sure you have the binoculars on. And you can do this in a nice small configuration above your radio over here in your right-hand corner. Make sure in gadgets you have your radio on and also your nav guides. Now I want to change some of the nav guides. So we're going to edit nav guides. And this time make sure you have your altitude above ground level, your ground speed, your heading, because that may come in handy on this one, your battery remaining, your energy remaining, your fuel remaining, your voltage, your wind direction, wind speed, and wind updraft, and your distance to the aircraft from the pilot. And that'll give you a little bit of a sense of the exercise we're going to do. We're going to try to fly out over the lake. We call this one Lost and Found, and try to confuse ourselves with what we're doing. So let's start here at the beginning, and let's look at our degrees. Okay, so when we're out there, before we take off, let's get a sense of these degrees we have here. So if we start at the beginning, we're going to naturally be pointed in 329 degrees. All right. There's a boat, and there's our pilot truck. So let's say we're right here, and that's going to be 87 degrees. See, I'm looking at my heading there. And let's say behind us, if we point towards the truck, let's say to get a bearing, about 185 degrees. And then to our right, so our boat and our truck are behind us. And again, you can figure all these out by using 360 degrees. But we're just going to do this kind of the rough way, so about 240 degrees. So what we're going to do is we're going to fly out into the foggy area over the lake here. And let me make sure I tell you which actual environment we're in. That will help. So our airport is going to be Alpine Lake. We're going to choose the Alpine Lake scenario. So we're going to head out 348 degrees in that direction. And your goal is to fly out here across the lake, get to about at least 100 feet in the air. And just fly wherever you'd like. And I want you to get about 1,000 feet away from the pilot. And you can see we're about 1,000 feet away now. Now I'm going to turn and use the degrees as well as the viewport as a means of getting my drone back. So I know at this point I want to be headed about probably 240 degrees, if you will. But I'm only headed 90, so I'm not in the right direction to get back to my truck, and that's what I'm practicing here. So I'm going back and forth between my degrees, and there it is. I found it. I'm flying over it, but I'm still having trouble. I need to land, and for some reason I took off in an area full of trees. So I know I need to do my legs. So again, I need to get facing in that 240 degree area here to get myself to my nice dog leg. So I'm still a little off. Get that 240 degrees or thereabouts, 260, 250, somewhere in that area, get myself over here. And again, I'm far enough away that I can begin to turn, because I want to head to about 87 degrees going back this way. And that'll bring me back on target for my landing. All right, so I can see there, I'm at about 110 degrees. I want to start to slow down and come towards the ground. And I want to try to land between the trees, but headed towards where I would be. So I want to try to avoid trees as much as possible and have some kind of successful landing on the ground. The ultimate goal is to fly out, and I won't go quite as far. When you do your video, I want you to do 1,000 feet and not crash. Let me pay attention to what I'm doing here for a second. All right, so you're going to fly out here into the outer limits. Let's say we're 1,000 feet out. We're going to turn, try to fly. Get myself level here, so I'm paying attention to what I'm doing rather than the next thing I'm going to say. I'm going to again try to fly out to that 240 degree area out here as close as I can. 220, 240. And then I'm going to make my turn. Head back towards that 87 degree. And then I'll see my landing zone as I get closer. And I'm going to, again, trying to get through the trees towards my truck, towards my landing. And remember, with fixed-wing drones in real life, it's always a kind of a rough landing, and the tree helped me there. All right. So your ultimate goal is, again, fly out. Use your distance from the pilot. Use your heading in terms of degrees. Watch your battery consumption. Watch your speed. Watch your altitude. Stay in that 100 to 150 feet off the ground. Watch your ground speed so that when you're landing, it's a little bit slower, and try to get yourself a good landing there. So you're going to continue to practice this as best you can. Flying out again. About at least 1,000 feet away from the pilot. Okay, so now you're out there and you're like, oh, there isn't really good land markings because I'm flying over a lake. I want to get my drone back Maybe this wasn't the best takeoff place. Maybe there's a way for me to do this. So if I fly away from the pilot another 1,000 feet out in the other direction, I can then make my turn. Maybe slow down a little bit. Turn towards that 87 degrees. There's my... Come in. Try to fly through trees. Find my truck. And bring her in for a nice landing. And near my truck, as close as I can. That way I can pick up my drone and retrieve it. So the goal of this exercise is to play around as much as you can, looking at your distance from your pilot, your altitude, your ground speed, and your heading. And think about that circle. Remember, a circle goes from 0, 360 degrees, okay, with 0 and 360 being, think of most northern position, 90 degrees to the most eastern, 180 degrees, and then 270 degrees, or 270 degrees to the most western position. And that'll put your drone in a good kind of idea of where your heading is in terms of direction, in terms of degrees on our planet. So that's what I want you to use, and I want you to concentrate a lot on, is those degrees, and try to get yourself lost out there. And then try to use the degrees as well as your viewport to find your way. And you'll see I'm still moving a little bit on the ground. But you can see I'm right next to the truck, so I was able to successfully get back. It'll take a couple iterations to do this. Ultimately, we want just one flight on your video. Should be about a 2-minute flight. Once you've practiced, like I have here for you, a number of times. Enjoy the Alpine Lake scenario. Enjoy trying to land between those trees. Enjoy trying to determine your headings. You may find that moving the nav guides over here might be a little easier for you. So, play around with where you're going to move your controls, where you're going to move your gadgets in the software. That way you can get a better sense of what you're trying to accomplish and your eyesight. So moving back and forth from the right to the left while trying to fly the drone. So I'm trying to keep an eye on the drone in the middle screen, trying to get my bearings in my left-hand viewport, trying to get my headings. If I have that all the way to the right, might be too much eye movement back and forth. So, fool around, try to think about what's going to work for you, do some loop-de-loops, have some fun with this drone. I will tell you that trying to successfully land a real fixed-wing drone in real life is often the most difficult part of flying a fixed-wing drone. Much easier to fly than the Slinger, something like the Parrot Disco, because of the number of controls that it has on it. But definitely a challenge landing for all of us, especially because we tend to spend a lot of time in the program on quadcopters. So when we get to the fixed wings, we're not as practiced, which is why I want you to spend one more week practicing the fixed wing before we move on to search and rescue. So I will see you in the next video, and thank you for joining us today.